Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection to that which is bigger than us, the big mystery, beyond the veil, what we're really here for, our divine purpose and how we found it, all these beautiful stories that we share just to inspire you on your own journey. In hearing someone else's story, we often can find a point of connection, like, oh, I've had something similar to that. Okay, maybe I'm at this place on my journey, or, we can learn from each other. It's such a fun thing. I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird, and I love having these conversations. I get to meet all kinds of amazing people across the planet who have taken these incredible journeys and are now serving as a point of light for others. And I love to also help people take that journey for themselves. And I have group mentoring that's called Butterfly Circle, and it's coming up, another entry point right around the corner for you. So if you're interested in that, let's have a discussion about how we might work together for your evolution. So today's guest is Jennifer Zanotti. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to have Jennifer on the show today. Jennifer actually owned and operated a successful beauty service and day spa business since 2001. And so it's interesting that that was a beginning, because this is all about like personal health and individual improvement and makeovers and aesthetics. And that also led Jennifer to really be interested in personal training, life coaching, and all kinds of complementary services, because we know that if we want to really thrive, we have to do it at all levels, body, mind, and spirit. It's not just one thing. It's like a whole picture. And so Jennifer has been helping people, her clients and her audience, with all of these makeovers on her podcast, appropriately named the Gen Z Podcast. And it's a popular source for both personal wellness information and features of people eager to share stories of friendship and accomplishment. So I was on her podcast earlier this year, and so it's super exciting. And I'll put a link to that so you guys can go check it out. So this is super fun. Just like me, Jennifer also participates in all kinds of expert panels and things like that, and just share, just kind of want to share your light, and share your wisdom, and help people to really live the best life they can possibly live. So we're going to hear a little bit about Jennifer and Jennifer's story. So share with us, like, how did you get started on your own journey of discovery? Like, it sounds like it evolved kind of like mine. Like, you thought, oh, I really like aesthetics. And then like that led to other things. But tell us like how it started for you.
Yeah, it's been a huge evolution. I feel like I've always gone through phases in my life. And actually, as I look back at it now, it's like I've always kind of wanted to grow or change or evolve, even when I was younger and probably starting in high school. But I really, being an esthetician, I think that was something, especially with massage and the power of touch. I think I always had that inside of me where I was offering healing services. It was just part of me. I think it was part of who I was and my personality and character. But I never really knew like what it was until I met a good friend of mine. This was probably about 7-8 years ago now. And I already had my spa. And she had a mentor who is a medium, and she also trained people in Reiki and all of that. And so hearing through this, my friend is very spiritual, and she's an amazing soul. And I was in a bad marriage, and I think that was really where I started getting internal and looking at myself and my experience in my life, and kind of like, what is this purpose? Why am I here? What am I doing? How am I in this place? It's definitely I think you kind of look at yourself and you want to understand everything that it's led up to and what's going on in your life and the reasoning for everything. And I just wasn't in a happy place. And that's when I was able to start kind of turning inwards, and with my friend and this mentor who became my mentor, started opening up to learning Reiki. And through that journey, I was able to take a deeper dive into myself, what I felt like I was meant to do, the choices I needed to make moving forward. And I eventually got a divorce, which was a great thing ultimately. But that's when it all kind of started. And I started really using it with my clients intentionally, because I felt like I had this light within me, but then I was really able to understand how to utilize it and be able to offer it to other people. Because my mission in life, no matter what I was doing, has always been to help others. And I just didn't know in what way that would necessarily be, but I knew that that was what I had to do. I had to be there as a support, a guide, as an advocate for people. And this was a way that I was able to do that. And now, I mean, it's something that is part of pretty much my daily routine with clients. So it's really been an interesting journey. And I know you and I had talked about, and I feel like we can relate to the previous marriage that we were both
Yeah.
in. But it's, it's really interesting, I think, how when we take a look at our lives and the timing, I really believe things happen for a reason. And the marriage that I was in, I, choosing to get a divorce was probably one of the hardest decisions that I made in my life. And I didn't feel like I would ever, coming from an Italian background, like very, Catholic Italian, it was like, that's something that you don't do. And, I fought for that relationship at the time. And as I look back at it, I really think in a past life, I was my ex-husband's like mom. It was very much of like a mother figure, role. I love him still to this day like a brother, but I was always there to kind of help him through a lot of hard times. But we were just not connected. We were not growing together. We were two completely different people. And I came to terms with that eventually that was okay. And we were there for each other at the time we needed to be, but there was also a lot of, I'd say some verbal abuse and really trying to live up to a role of being perfect, and that I put on myself. A lot of that stuff I put on myself, but I was really trying to prove myself to somebody, when at the end of the day, I was like, why am I proving myself to this person? They're never going to understand me, and that's okay. So I had to make that decision through my own self-exploration, opening up to, the loved ones around me and my family and the support, and realizing, okay, they're still going to love me if I move forward and get a divorce. Like, this is the best thing. I'm not happy. My ex-husband wasn't happy, and I needed to make that change and get out. So we could heal and move on and both live happy lives. And I think that decision, really made me feel empowered. It let a huge weight off my shoulders. And it made me feel like I'm a lot stronger than I believed that I once was.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I was a child of divorce. Like my mom I had three different dads from the time I was 0 to 5, right? And
Yeah,
so when I got married that first time, I was like, this is till death do us part. Like I really meant it. Like I'm going to keep this relationship.
of course.
But you can beat that dead horse. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like it is really like if it's just not working, that's what I finally had to come to is like, if I can't force this to work by fixing myself, in these psychotherapy sessions, like maybe it's better to show my kids the bravery of starting over and finding out what's true for me.
Hmm. Well, and I feel like, it comes to a point where, it's like, why am I doing this? I was always the type of person to put a smile on my face and make everybody else happy. And I was always, I'm a giver, and I want to make sure everybody's good and happy and everything's okay. And I literally had a breakdown in the kitchen one day physically, where I was like, I cannot do this. And, it's like, how is this fair for me to stay? It's not fair to him either, because I'm living a lie. I'm not happy and I don't want to be here. And that's not fair to that person either. So it's kind of coming to that point, like, let's just move on. This happened, and I feel like there was a purpose for it. But during that time, because we were kind of so separate, I was able to still accomplish everything I wanted to. I'm very much like a just do it, girl. Like, I know what I
Yeah, I totally got you on that one.
like, nobody's going to tell me I can't do something. So I started training jujitsu, and I started, I continued working on my business, and all these goals, these things I wanted to accomplish, I did. And I feel like that was really a period of time for me to grow and evolve and become more confident. And that's what I think to this day, between, tapping into more of the spiritual side and training Brazilian jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu has a very mind, body, soul connection, like martial arts. And, when you are physically fighting someone, and there's an art to it, and it's like a physical chess game. But when you're training, anything that you have in your mind, any stress, you get on those mats, you can't think about it. If you're not present, you can seriously get injured. You can, break your arm, leg, you can get choked out. I mean, things can happen. So you have to be 100% focused. When you get off those mats, anything that you were concerned about in your life, you're like, I just survived that. I can survive anything. Like, and it gives you just such a sense of empowerment. And I think you can really focus on what's truly important in life, and what's worth worrying about, or what's a real stressor or not. And all of that prompted me to move forward, and I think really just understand what I wanted, who I was, and that it was okay. Like, we're on this unique journey, and that just makes me part of who I am. That's a war wound. And now I'm in an amazing relationship, and it's, with a true partner who we actually like each other, not only love each other, but it's like we love being together and creating, and are passionate, and just all of this stuff. And if I hadn't gone through that, I don't think I would have been in the place that I was now.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like those relationships, those first relationships, at least I find in myself, that was like a karma relationship. It was like something I really needed to sort out in myself about my early programming and my early life. And it took me a while to do it. It was very complex, and we didn't have like a bad time. Like, we had a lot of fun together. We went on trips, we traveled all the time. We had a lot of fun, we did a lot of things, and we had a lot of challenges. Like, we had a lot of deep challenges in the relationship. And and then when we had kids, like, it got extra complicated. But then it was like, leaving that relationship was the beginning of my declaration of like, you know what, I'm not broken, and I'm not to blame, and I'm not wrong, and I'm leaving because I need to find a world that looks at me and thinks I'm a blessing. Like, I can't keep staying in a relationship where I'm the problem, and I won't live in that world anymore. Like, and so I left that world. I just walked away from it. And it's still sort of, that's the world still wants to say that, right? But there's a whole other world out there who's like, Carrie Hummingbird, you're a total blessing. And so I live in that world.
Yep, absolutely. I feel like there can always be reminders and triggers. And like I said, I don't know if it was some kind of past life karmic experience. I'm grateful I went through that. And like I said, it's very unique. I still have interesting relationship with my ex. Like, I am almost, protective of him in a way. And he's by no means, he's not a bad person. I'm not, we just weren't meant to be together for the long haul. We're just two completely different people. But I think we, like I said, I very much felt like I was his mother in a past life, and helped him get through some stuff. I was able to work on myself, and there's still things though that resonate, like, and some triggers even now, where in not understanding each other, and I felt misunderstood on everything I was trying to do and accomplish, and I was not perceived, I think, necessarily as a blessing, and maybe not in a malicious way. But there's things that I felt like I was put down about that can still kind of surface today, where it's like, oh, I don't feel like I'm as successful in this way, or that. And I have to just tell myself, like, Jen, no, like, that's the past. Choose to live in this positive, look at everything that you're doing. And, you can.
That's where your martial arts training can really come in handy to help you get that focus back. Like, Okay, because it really is a choice. I mean, we're always given choices. Like,
Yeah.
are you sure we don't want to step over it if you're having a bad feeling and you're something's coming up in the past, and so we don't want to step over it and ignore it and say it's not there. It's there. But
We have to
then
feel those. Yeah.
you got to feel it. But then you got to like make a decision, like a choice. Are you going to continue to spin out in that space,
Mhm.
or are you going to move forward?
Absolutely. I'm a huge, advocate for that. And I know people, and I don't want to take away something that's important to somebody or somebody's worried about or stressed about. But it is like negativity is the easiest choice. I think it's the easier option. But being positive is hard. It's it takes a lot of strength and courage. And we definitely, even telling all my clients, like, you have to feel your feels, you have to release, you have to let go. If it's via like, journaling or physical activity, getting out in nature, breathing, whatever it is, communicating, we need to release those emotions and feel them. Because we know what can happen if they get pent up inside for a long period of time. But, I I do think that once you understand kind of what's going on in the awareness and the recognition, moving forward and making that conscious choice to say, like, why is this happening right now? Okay, I'm going to take this as a lesson. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to have this positive outlook, as hard as it might be right now or feel. Just bringing in that positivity, I think, is just such a healthier, better way for us to move forward. And a lot of amazing things can happen through that. But there are a lot of people that choose, the other option, and, sometimes get stuck.
Yeah, and we just had a major event. We're in the middle of it now during this recording of facing ourselves, staying home and not being able to distract away from the issues at home, having to be fully immersed in it, can't leave. It's like, okay, we're really facing ourselves and what we've created in our lives. And I do believe we've created it for ourselves. And, back when I was, in my previous life, I would have said, I didn't, I wouldn't have maybe said it was happening to me. but,
Yeah.
but at some point I had to realize I created that. I was a co-creator of that marriage, of that relationship, of that situation,
Mhm.
like by not speaking up about certain things or not setting a boundary or not, taking the steps I needed to take. Like I co-created that, and it got to a very negative space.
Mhm.
So what do you, I mean, I'm just imagining the fallout from this, and I'm imagining, this episode coming out in August, and like by then, like people being like, whoa, I really have to make a change. What advice do you have for somebody who during this quarantine period realized, oh, I can no longer not do something. Like, I
It's
got to
funny.
do something.
It's funny you say that, because this morning I woke up and I was like, I need to do a Facebook Live later today. And after I had my Reiki session, it just validated that about, as we're kind of forced in this seclusion, whether it be we're alone or with family members. I've always talked about this with clients where there's an amount of stress we need that it can be motivating. There's some good stress, but I feel like we've gotten so used to this chronic stress in our lives. We live these chaotic, busy lives. We live the hustle. And listen, I embrace, and as I have my embrace amazing, my mantra, I embrace the hustle. But we get so used to this stress as a norm in our daily lives, and we take it for granted. And it's like, this can cause so much disease. I mean, so many people with high blood pressure, physical ailments, obesity, heart disease, so many things. And it's a lot of the simple things in life, like good rest, low stress, water, good nutrition, exercise, that can help us boost our immune systems and just live a healthier life. So I think, now it's so important to recognize we've had this halt, and it's like, oh, wow, this is a reflection time to look at what our lives were like. And I want people, instead of recognizing all the negative stuff going on, and of course we don't want any sickness and we don't want people dying, But it's like, what are some of the positive takeaways that the things that you're able to do now that you weren't before because you're forced into this position? I want people to recognize that and see, like, what are these things when things hopefully, you know, get back to a sense of a normalcy. Instead of just going back to the grind, what is it that you're now able to do that you want to be able to continue to do in the future? You know, what is this situation bringing to light in your life? Are you happy with things that are going on in your personal situation, in your work? You know, have you avoided a lot of feelings and emotions that you've been so too busy to address, that now you can take this time to maybe sit with it and write and really meditate and see, you know, what are you feeling? What are you feeling in your heart? What are the changes that you want to move forward with in your life? And what's been holding you back for so long? You know, I think now is really a time to just kind of get internal and look in our heart space and be like, what are the things that I want? What do I want when this is over? What do I want in this short term? And I think it is like, what are the things I've been able to do now that I'm really enjoying, that I don't want to lose when we get back to whatever routine it might be? And, you know, I was talking with my boyfriend today and I'm like, you know, any of the negative stuff aside, and I know it's a huge financial burden for a lot of people. Obviously, I'm a small business owner. I understand that. And I'm grateful I can do some things virtually, beauty, not so much. But I'm kind of like, you know, there's some things that I'm really enjoying right now. And thinking, I'm like, I don't know that I want to fully get back into that same kind of schedule. You know, I really want to bring a little more balance into my life. And, you know, I think this is a time where we can take this and dive a little bit deeper and not take this time for granted either, because once this will end at some point, we're jumping right back in, you know, in some way, shape, or form. So I think we really need to take this time right now to be present and use it as an opportunity.
Yeah, and to recognize too that because I tune into astrology, and I
Mm-hmm.
was just listening to an astrological forecast that said that according to the astrology, things could get a little hectic back again at the end of the year, like December, January. The energy of the planets is bringing some more intensity like we've been experiencing in the spring come back again at the end of the year. So not to get too cozy and think that, oh, we can just go back to the way it was, or we can
Right.
just go back to some new sense of normal, we can just get back to it. It's like, no, we really actually need to take the lessons from this time out and do it different. Like at the very least, be healthy, right? At the very least, develop immunity.
That's what I'm just hoping. I'm hoping it's not like, oh, okay, we got through that. Great.
Let
Like
me go
now it's
chug another gallon of beer.
right. Right. I mean, it's like we need to, you know, take this time to get healthy and to boost our immune systems and to, you know, I just come back to that stress. I feel like our lives are consumed with this stress factor. And it doesn't have to be that way. We need more balance. I mean, because stress is what is going to totally downshift on that immune system, first of all. And like I said, then that's just an area for all this other disease to kind of grow and brew. But I'm really hoping people do take these lessons and, you know, we can just start doing things differently moving forward. You know, I feel like some even small changes, you know, can make a huge impact. And look at like Mother Nature right now. I feel like she's like, oh yeah, like I'm not
Finally.
able to thrive right now. And
Although
we, yeah,
I was hearing, you know, those jackhammer things that they put in the earth during construction. I was hearing that this morning, and I was like, really? You're not getting the message to stop all that? That's not an essential business. Like, that's not essential. Why are you still doing that? But anyway, that was just my judgment. But because I feel like Pachamama's like, oh, really? Like, please just let me rest. Like,
yeah,
please stop doing everything that's not essential.
absolutely. I think we're just kind of putting a time out right now. And I think she's hoping we do take these lessons. And of course, things are going to come back differently. Like, yes, we need to work. A lot of people, like I said, it's really hard right now and it's a struggle. But I feel like too, a lot of people, myself included, I've been able to recognize like, oh, this is a whole other platform or outlet for my business. Like, I can do things more remote, like with clients. Like, this is a great opportunity. This is something that's good where I can bring more of that balance into my life. I just think there's little takeaways that we all really need to kind of open our eyes and see and realize that there's a lot of positives we can kind of take away. And
in making those changes. So like, it's one thing to know the change that you want to make. And then did you got to actually create the discipline in order to create that shift, right? So how do you help people do that? Like, what's your process? Because I know with your martial arts, you've got some discipline.
yeah,
Discipline is the one key ingredient to making a change in your life that you actually really need.
I've always been luckily very like self-motivated, self-disciplined. And my clients are like, well, that's great for you. But, it's not easy. But on the same token, I want to say it's a lot easier than we think and we make it out to be. So when I work with clients and, for example, like with nutrition and training, and that's why a lot of my packages, I like to incorporate like empowerment sessions and nutrition and personal training and Reiki, because it's all those pieces, right? It's not just one of them. But once we kind of look at their goals and we've recognized, okay, this is what the change is, this is what I want. If somebody wants to start eating completely clean, I'm not gonna just take away everything they're doing right now and say like, this is what you have to do. You can't have this, that, or, whatever it may be, and take everything away. It's moderation. I like to look at what people are currently doing. So tell me, let's look at what you're eating for, the 7 days this week. And I like to then make tweaks accordingly. And we can use that for anything in life. I'm feeling overwhelmed at work, or this is what my schedule is like right now. Well, let's look at what you are doing right now. And then let's take away little things or make little tweaks or implement new habits that you can start doing daily that are not overwhelming, that will make a huge impact in the next weeks, months, years, because I feel like it's more attainable then for people to do, instead of just saying, oh no, scratch that, you can't do any of this and you have to completely change everything. That's hard for people to do, and then you set yourself up for failure. And then the motivation definitely goes down the drain. But if it's one small thing, like, okay, you're drinking soda, let's take away, the soda, but let's keep everything else the same right now. And let's do that for a good week or two and then check back in. When we start doing, and we know that's a huge impact. I mean,
Oh
if you
yeah, all that
drink
sugar
soda
and
a day,
chemicals.
like, holy cow, but that's going to be a huge impact. And then as soon as that person starts feeling it, and they might feel some withdrawals at the beginning, first few days, doesn't last too long, but then it's like, oh wow, I was able to do that. Like, that's awesome. And I'm feeling so much better. Great. Let's make some more changes, or let's bring in some other things. Let's bring in some natural sugars. Let's get some more fruit in, some more greens, whatever it can be. Like I said, we can translate that to any kind of goal in life. But I think making those small changes that make a big impact allow people to see that they can accomplish those things and achieve them a lot easier than they think, because it is very little acute changes we can do and replace things for people. There's always a healthier option for something, and I think it's a lot easier than people build up in their minds.
Well,
And
because when you start looking at your life and you think about all the stuff that you do, and you start becoming aware
Mhm,
of how your current habits are actually affecting your health, it can feel a little overwhelming, because
for
it's
sure.
like in my previous existence, I would be like, I started realizing, oh, pizza is detrimental to my health because it's got gluten and cheese and all these things that are bog down your immunity and your energy level. And I loved pizza. And
Mhm.
so I was like, I had to give up pizza. And then I was like, you mean wine? I can't have all that wine I want. Like, I can't have all the wine. Man, that's hard. And that, so when I was in a space, like, I was really polluting my body with all that stuff and dessert and sugar and everything. And it was felt overwhelming to try to change all of that at once, right?
Mhm.
Plus, there's emotional attachments to things. Like I had an emotional attachment to pizza because that was my family's when I was with my mom and my dad. That was our like treat once a week is we would, whatever town we were living in, we would go find like the best pizza place and we'd have dinner together with pizza. So it was like an emotional thing for me. So I finally had to give up pizza. So I did give it up. I mean, I can have, cauliflower crust pizza with not cheese,
Right?
but
I
it
do
tastes good.
gluten-free pizza with no cheese, because gluten and dairy are not my friends, and that's just,
Veggie cheese tastes good. It does taste good.
but I'm glad you kind of brought that up too, because, you know, we have to, it's everything in moderation. I'm not going to tell somebody they're never going to have something again, because we do know, especially culturally, my family's Italian, we have family in Italy. And it's just, we have homemade recipes of things and we have traditions and all that's great, but that might be once or twice a year. And there's so many memories and good things that come around food and culture and love. And, you can tell when things are just made with love, and that's so important, and to embrace that. And, you're going to have those moments and that's okay. But that's something that's not going to be every day. That should not be part of your everyday life. You can still experience that and then move on and get back to your normal routine, and you're going to be okay. But it's these little changes we implement. And like I said, there's always, I think, when you can embrace kind of cooking for yourself, there's so many things that you can still create and have that are just healthier versions, that are just cleaner versions, that are better for you, and that you're going to probably ultimately enjoy more so. Because when you do have pizza again, I'm sure you have it and it's like, oh, I don't feel so good.
Yeah, you notice it.
I
Yeah,
think people don't realize like
you
that
don't
that's
realize
not
it.
how they're supposed to feel.
That's the thing is I didn't know, I had no idea that I was doing that. And this was even after like my energy medicine training and all that, is I still didn't give up the pizza. And it wasn't until I finally had to give it up because of just the configuration of my body. My guides were like, Carrie, you're just, there's an overload of toxins and you're doing all this healing work. And I'm working with sacred tobacco and they're like, it's just too many toxins. We can't have this other stuff. You just,
Huh?
you got to stick with the one and that's it. So I finally had to give it up. And there was that emotional attachment piece I had to break. And that was tricky. But now I actually feel way lighter, way more elevated,
Mhm.
and at another level of ascension where I've had recently a slice of pizza and I was like, oh, my stomach instantly got upset, and I started feeling that. I was like, oh, that's not good for me. I can't, that's not healthy.
And it's I think a lot of times too, especially when people are on a like weight loss journey, they always get kind of consumed with like how much they weigh and the number on the scale. And especially like we know it could have usually taken a long time to get to that number, so it's going to take a long time to kind of work it back. It's not going to happen overnight. But to be consistent and just determined and work through, even if we're not, especially as women, we can fluctuate in weight at any given time. But understanding it's like, but how are you feeling? All these changes we're making and these things that we're doing and implementing, how is it making you feel? Disregard the number on the scale. Don't even look at it. Don't weigh yourself. How are you feeling? Do you have more energy? Are you sleeping better? Do you feel a little more clear in the mind? Are your clothes fitting better? These are all things to kind of pay attention to. And so often we don't. And I ask people, how do you feel when you eat that? And it's something that they've never thought about before. And I'm like, well, these are things to pay attention to, because you're going to understand what foods, even some healthy foods, broccoli, I love it. It doesn't sit well with me. Great, but I know that. So I think it's practicing and asking ourselves, how does our body feel? It's going to tell us, it's going to react. So let's pay
Yeah, and
attention.
paying attention, like learning how to track and pay attention to your body and noticing things like when I had the pizza, like noticing that my stomach was instantly upset. I was like, oh, my stomach's upset. Okay. I
Hmm.
felt that right in my belly. I was like, oh, this is not good. Okay. And I knew what I had just eaten. So I knew the correlation of why my stomach was upset. So yeah, it's like paying attention to your body at a whole new level. It's another level of awareness that
Hmm.
I think once you start to pull out of the food fog, that
Yep.
a lot of people are in, then you can start to become aware of when it sets back in. It's like, oh, I was clear of it, and then there it is again.
Absolutely. And I think just paying attention to, the changes that we are making now, and especially in this time, checking in with ourselves, and it's like, how are we feeling? How are we feeling physically, mentally? What's our energy levels like? Are we taking enough time? I think this is really, I'm hoping this is the opportunity where people can look at themselves and be like, okay, this is time for me to practice some self-care. And really being able to implement that even daily, even if it's taking time to breathe. We don't breathe properly. It's like taking time to fill the lungs and nice deep inhales and exhales, and that can bring such a wave of calm over us. But that can even be a form of meditation, just that couple minutes, and making that practice to do that several times throughout the day, and just checking in with yourself, and taking 5 minutes of quiet time, whatever that is, and being consistent with it will make a huge impact. And
What's so
recognize.
interesting is that I noticed in my own life that I often didn't know that a change was needed
Mhm.
until I got suddenly put into a new circumstance where everything was all different. And then I became aware of not having certain comforts or not having certain routines or and things being different and changing around, and I became aware, oh wow, these are different and I don't feel safe, or I want those things, I didn't realize that those things were important to me. It's like we're kind of in that spot right now of like getting
Absolutely.
moved around and jostled.
I think it's and like I had mentioned when we were talking on when you were on as a guest for my podcast, one of the biggest lessons I think jujitsu has taught me is being comfortable in the uncomfortable. And anyone can utilize that. And I think it's kind of surrendering and letting go, and having this faith that things are going to be okay in whatever form things are going to happen. We don't have control of that. We can control what we're doing, and we can make active choices to better ourselves. But in the grand picture, what's happening right now is out of our control. And to be comfortable in that space and look at it as, okay, how can I force myself to adapt to some of these changes, and to be creative and to adjust. And right now it's a huge, like, how do we adapt and make the changes and do things that we need to do and communicate with other people and still keep some kind of normalcy? It's like a new norm. And I think it's forcing us to really be creative in many different ways. And I think that's something that we can explore, but really it's uncomfortable. That feeling of change is very uncomfortable, and learning to get to that space where it's like, okay, when I'm in an uncomfortable position in jujitsu, somebody that's 200 pounds, 250 pounds on top of me, like their body weight, that's a very vulnerable position. But instead of kind of, breathing really heavy and getting tense in our body and trying to just move frantically, that exudes so much more energy, and that just increases the level of stress. But if we can just sit there and kind of quiet our mind and talk to ourselves, say it's going to be okay, just breathe. We need to come back to that breath. When we can just breathe, that's going to create a sense of calm over the body, relax the body. Movement is so much easier then, and then we know how to kind of start working our escape a little bit. And I think we can use those lessons where when we get tense and stressed, that just increases the fear, and our breathing is not so good, and then our blood pressure is rising, and all of these things. But just working it back, and it's like, okay, I'm in this space. It's a horrible position. It's uncomfortable. I understand that, but I'm going to be okay. How am I going to work through this? Little steps. And I'm doing this as I miss my jujitsu so much, but like I'm wiggling out and trying to escape underneath somebody who's heavy. But you just have to kind of relax and be in it and just breathe.
Just breathe, relax, and be in it, and let the tension dissolve itself through your awareness of it. And you're still working yourself into a better position. You're just doing it from a more relaxed place. And I want to say it's kind of like this this external force, this little tiny virus, this external force came along and forced us all to change.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's external. But now we have to make it internal.
Yep.
Whatever we've learned is out of balance in our life. We now have to make a change internally and be the internal force that makes that permanent.
Mm-hmm.
So that part of the process of relaxing, I think, is part of that strategy.
Yes. We need to, it's easier said than done, but when you're in that kind of situation and you get really tense, it's hard to get out of. And I think it's almost like where there's that frustration and fear and you're just all over the place, and that's not going to get you out any faster. If anything, that's going to keep you in a space longer. The sooner you can recognize how to kind of surrender, let go, relax, and just breathe and kind of trust that you know what to do internally, the easier it's going to be and the quicker you're going to get out of that space or that bad situation.
Or maybe you'll just flip into a different understanding of the situation that helps you to cope with it better, as
Mm-hmm.
like some medicine or something that you need. It's like, instead of thinking of it as a virus that's trying to kill us, we
Mm-hmm.
could think of it as a medicine that's trying to teach us. And then that flips our minds from like fear and repulsion and avoidance and trying to keep it out to like, okay, relaxing. I have no control over it. What's here for me? What am I going to learn from this? What am I going to receive from this?
Exactly. It's all about perspective. It's about kind of flipping that tape, and just looking at it in a different way, in a different light, and then saying, okay, what can I do now to better myself, better the situation, look at this differently? What can I do moving forward? How can I relax? What tools can I use to understand this better, or take steps forward? I think it's really this, I really believe that this is an opportunity for us right now. And I think I'm hoping we're all going to take lessons that we need from it and that we can implement this new norm, pieces of it into our future lives. And just recognize and take away the things that we're doing right now that we still really want to continue to do. I think there's a lot of positives that we can take from it and incorporate them in our lives in the future.
And then just, I like the fact that you talk about those baby steps. Like, just keep taking the little daily steps.
Little daily
They
steps. So we gotta
expand.
overwhelm. Yep.
Like,
They
if
make
you're digging yourself out of a huge hole right now, right? Like, if you lost your job or whatever happened and you're digging yourself out of a huge financial hole that feels like super overwhelming,
mm-hmm.
you can proactively make these little, stay in that space of calm, right?
Absolutely. It's like when we can look at the big goal, but then it's like, let's break it down, into little chunks, because it's going to be overwhelming to think about. We can't do a million things at once. Let's focus on one thing and get it done and crossed off the list. These little daily things we can do for ourselves, and not consuming the whole day with everything, taking some time for yourself, taking a break, being gentle with yourself, because this can be more of a stressful time for people right now, having to, file unemployment or figure out how they're going to pay their next bill or whatever it might be. But it's like, okay, you still need to take some time for you in it all. It's going to be there. Right now, all we have is time. So we need to take some of it for us and then, tackle that to-do list. Like I said, little small chunks. If it's changes to implement or to-dos or how to figure out, how to accomplish a goal, We need those baby daily steps that'll turn into weekly steps, that'll turn into monthly and then yearly. And then you look back and it's like, wow, look at all that I was able to do or achieve, or the changes I was really able to make.
And there's a space in here too of like, there could be a surprise in here for you. Like if you never had anybody do anything nice for you, you might all of a sudden find out you're in your hour of need and people show up. Like you might have the unexpected support you never ever received before.
And I think that's something that's hard too, but I'm really hoping that we can we can practice kindness and be compassionate to others right now. And instead of getting frustrated and just, not being so nice to people. But I think communicating and asking for help when we need it is a big lesson that a lot of us can probably take away. And you might be surprised at the support you would receive in exchange for that. I think when we can be vulnerable and open up and express our fears or the struggles that we're having, there's people that are going to be there to support you. A lot of times we hold ourselves back from that, but we can get that help and support we need. And then that, I think, opens up a whole different perspective for people, especially being vulnerable in that moment. I really think it's going to bring something positive into your life.
Absolutely. I believe that too. And what we believe manifests in the law of attraction. So
Absolutely. Yes, it does.
keep yourself positive, people. So, Jennifer, besides your podcast, which I'm going to link to our episode on your podcast
Yeah.
from the show notes, besides your podcast, what are some other ways that people can get familiar with the work that you do and reach out to you?
Yeah, so everything is available. Everything in the Gen Z world is on my website, which is embrace-amazing.com. And they can find me on Instagram at Embrace Amazing, just one word, no dash in the Instagram. And on Facebook, I have a page, Embrace Amazing with Gen Z. But I do have my brick and mortar, business that I've had for 13 years. And I've been in this profession, oh my God, 19 years, which is crazy. But everything is on my website, everything that I offer, wellness, fitness, beauty, podcasting, jujitsu, all of it.
That's so awesome. And I love that it's like you just kept finding all the little pieces that you needed to complete your own puzzle. And then you invite other people into that melange,
Absolutely. Like, I need to make this happen. This is unique. And it's all these little parts. They all work together really well. I'm like, I know they do. They all connect.
They all connect. Beautiful. Well, I enjoyed hearing your stories and your wisdom. Maybe really good advice for people out there. And I hope that you all enjoyed the episode out there as well. And if you did, I invite you to leave us a nice review, a nice little comment, a little 5-star review, wherever you found it. Just that helps the engines out there know that this is good content. You liked it, and then share it out. Share it out on your feed if you like. Help more people find Jennifer, and help more people find Soul Nectar Show. We appreciate your support. And now I like to give people kisses. We can give these kisses because they're germ free. So,
oh my gosh, yes. See, I'm a hugger.
You can hug people, and I can.
It's all about aggressive cuddles.
So we'll do some aggressive cuddling and some kissing. So we love you, people.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on.
I'm so glad you came on the show. Okay, everybody, here come your kisses. We love you.
And hugs.
Kisses and hugs. See you next time on Soul Nectar Show, everybody. Bye for now.